Wait, remember Milo Murphy's Law? It was a Disney Channel cartoon from the people that brought you Phineas and Ferb as we follow the character of Milo Murphy and all the bad luck that he must endure thanks to being a descendant of Edward Murphy Jr., the person behind Murphy's Law, aka the anything that can go wrong will go wrong guy. But this doesn't stop Milo from looking on the bright side and getting through these moments thrown his way. Along with his trusty mystery box backpack, Milo is always ready to face any challenge the universe gives to him. It's unfortunate though that Milo Murphy's Law feels like it went under the radar for the most part, and partially for no fault of its own other than being the follow-up show to Phineas and Ferb once that came to an end, and I guess it's now coming back. But with the wild success of that show, it's hard to be the follow-up show, regardless of any relation to it or not, so today, let's take a look into Milo Murphy's Law, get a familiarity to what it was all about, and see how it truly is based on its own merits. Now, the character of Milo is a fictional relative of Edward Murphy Jr., but this does offer a fun in concept character that is cursed by the harsh and cruel reality of things always going wrong. But his avoidance of just being the victim of these problems isn't what makes Milo interesting. It's his upbeat and charismatic attitude towards it all that becomes the infectious selling point. The show itself flows as a slice of life series that follows Milo along with his two friends Melissa and Zach that have to handle any situation they find themselves in thanks to the whole Murphy's Law thing. Fairly simple premise to follow, and it even comes with a sense of what came before it thanks to the inclusion of Milo's dog, Diogi. Well, not exactly like this platypus. Oh, Perry the platypus! Sorry, couldn't tell there for a second. Diogi is a faithful protector of Milo more often than not, living the life of a dog and doing his own thing, but can just pop up out of nowhere to help Milo in different situations, before being told to, head back home. With this being the creation of both Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh, there is a lot of what makes Phineas and Ferb a well-beloved show found here as well. While Milo Murphy's Law does have its clear own identity away from what came before it, there are plenty of similarities. For one, the show falls in the same world as Phineas and Ferb does, and I'll bring more up about that later on, but when Phineas and Ferb ended its first initial run in 2015, it would only be a year later on October 3rd, 2016 that Milo Murphy's Law would premiere. There should be this easy excitement off the bat coming from the base knowledge of its creators and it coming so soon after the other show. But instead of being a main Disney Channel staple, it instead premiered on the other channel Disney XD. Another point that we'll wrap around back to. The setup for the episode should feel very opening, in that there isn't much going on in a single episode than the build up from a simple day to some sort of wild, crazy, or weird mess to somehow solve. For the most part. The series later on does tend to break that mold somewhat. Milo as a character is easy to like. His attitude, his relationship to his friends, and how lucky he is in overcoming his unluckiness. He is voiced by the talented musician and comedian Weird Al Yankovic. So while he does deliver a good voice acting performance, the big reason to have him on board is the signature trait from Dan and Swampy, and that's the music. Much like Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law has a solid focus on adding in these moments where the show breaks into a musical number. So to have Weird Al on board surely isn't a bad thing. Not only just having talent when it comes to making music, but making catchy comedy-based music seems like a perfect match. And honestly, it was. From the opening theme song to the many musical numbers, Weird Al made a great effort to help make these performances pop. In addition to that, so did the supporting cast, especially when you have Melissa, one of Milo's best friends in the show, being voiced by Sabrina Carpenter. If that name rings a bell, she's an actress from the Disney camp of content from stuff like Girl Meets World and the remake of Adventures in Babysitting, and oh yeah, she's also a massive musical artist, even more so in modern day, even getting to perform as the opener for Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour. So when it comes to having the musical talent locked in, it was there. Milo's other best friend Zach does a great job in all aspects as well, voiced by Mackay Curtis, another person within the Disney world of content from being in Kirby Buckets and beyond that, being in the show Power Book 3. While I wouldn't say between the main trio friend group here that there is enough interesting to make them each stand out from the tropes we see in every group dynamic like this, I will say that all three of them feel pretty genuine and play their roles well for how they fit into the equation. Like I said, Milo is a very likable character on his own, maintaining a cheery personality while having to deal with being extremely unlucky. People are attracted to his orbit thanks to the person he is, but at the same time tend to keep a bit of distance as to not include themselves in on his bad luck.
You're watching Milo Murphy's Law. We'll be right back. You're watching Milo Murphy's Law. Now back to the show.
Now, Milo isn't unaware of dealing with Murphy's Law literally being a part of his life. In fact, he embraces it for what it is and sees it as a way more exciting way to experience life. When stuff does go wrong in the world around him, his reactions aren't to freak out or to be scared by them, but to face them head on, having an endless supply of, well, supplies to help out in these moments. His trusty backpack is seemingly the one-stop shop for any problem, which could come off as this overpowered and easy solution to things, but it's used in a way that really helps bolster Milo's upbeat confidence. It represents those emotions, being the difference between staying calm and finding a way to fix the problem, or feeling anxious and unsure of what to do. This essentially magical backpack was given to Milo from a character named Veronica that used to babysit Milo while he was growing up, having to directly deal with him and his Murphy's Law curse. She originally carried the backpack that had anything you can think of to combat whatever gets thrown their way, but as he got older and no longer needed a babysitter, she passed down her backpack to him, as he holds onto it tightly to feel safe and confident to face the world, and to feel that comfort and protection that Veronica used to provide. It's genuinely really sweet. But when having these Murphy's Law problems follow you around, Milo is able to understand when other people may not want him around, knowing what his presence could cause. It still hurts sometimes, but he knows why others can feel this way, and he doesn't want to bring these problems to them. He sees the best intentions in people, even to those who aren't particularly a great person to him. That brings us to his friends, who offer a level of support that no one else aside from Veronica has ever really shown him. First, let's look at Melissa. She's smart and confident, but definitely a little forgetful when it comes to her own stuff. She's fiercely loyal and supportive of Milo in any situation, from becoming his first real friend in their earlier school years, all the way to where we see them in the show now. She sticks up for him when he won't speak up for himself to those who are being mean to him, but she also boosts him up for him to feel good and to feel that he's not just being protected by another person. She would even try and find a cure to help Milo with Murphy's Law, but understands that he doesn't want that. He isn't looking for it to go away, so in respecting that, she sticks by him through thick and thin. No matter what Murphy's Law drops on them, she is there to face it with him. Milo's other best friend, Zach, is a cool person with an interesting past that he rather hide. He's the newer kid in town, finding enjoyment in befriending Milo based on the wild rides that Murphy's Law causes them to go on. He offers Milo, and by extension Melissa, certain perspectives on what is going on, trying to come off as the voice of reason in plenty of the different circumstances. His attitude for what else could go wrong or there's no way things could get worse provides some funny moments and a bit of jinxing thanks to Murphy's Law being Murphy's Law. Most times, it will always get worse in some way. His past revolves around him being a part of this boy band called the Lumberzaks. Fresh flannel looks aside, he left his band over a girl that came between him and the other band members, causing him to leave the band while the band went on with a new name, with Zach no longer being the leader of the group. He's conflicted at the knowledge of others knowing him from being in the band. He worries and overthinks so much about his life and the things that are in his life, and in doing so, it initially drove him away from Milo, but that didn't last long, as the good person Milo is truly broke through the worries Zach has about Milo's luck. When it comes to Melissa, however, the two of them become a lot closer just in being friends with Milo. Sure, they can operate as exact opposites in the way they deal with and feel about Milo's situation, but this also brings them together and helps them find a nice bond that over time may be leading to something more. Overall, the group here, while playing into these standard tropes, all fill out the roles nicely, and their interactions with each other are genuinely enjoyable to watch and follow with how they progress throughout the series. Murphy's Law is represented in the show as this condition that Milo has, where it can more properly be explained in universe as extreme hereditary Murphy's Law, as Milo's father has the condition as well, with it apparently only affecting the men in the family lineage, as Milo's sister Sarah doesn't have to worry about it for herself. I just really like Milo's home life in general, as him and his dad get to bond over living with Murphy's Law, as his dad can help mentor him through some of the struggles based on his own past with them. Milo and his mom are really close as well, as she will always be there for him with something to take to heart, as well as some guiding words, building him into the kind person that he is, as well as building the confidence in himself. And even with his sister, we see that when things do go wrong when they hang out, that she still cares deeply for her younger brother, and looks past his situation, and tie that all together with a loyal dog bow and you have a wholesome little family dynamic here. Extended beyond this, we do see the family life of both Melissa and Zach, fleshing out these characters greatly. Milo's school life plays a big factor into the show, as we get to see how other students and even school school faculty interact and deal with Milo. He has a crush on one of his fellow students named Amanda, as we see how he navigates trying to express his interest with his circumstances. And seeing how their characters develop alongside each other is a good look into the coming-of-age scenarios that they're placed in, leading her to have some feelings back towards Milo. There's also Mort, who is another semi-friend of Milo in the group, but definitely not as close as the three of them are. He sees things in a spiritual sense when it comes to Milo's situation, which contrasts heavily with his friend Bradley, who really doesn't like Milo. For a multitude of reasons, Bradley sees Milo as a nuisance and someone in his way, and more specifically on the latter when it comes to trying to win over Melissa, being jealous of her spending time with both Milo and Zach instead of giving him the time of day. All of this school drama leads to a lot of great laughs from their interactions, as well as how the school faculty is portrayed in the show. In fact, one of the funniest gags is when Mr. Blunt yells at the class to suffer and make art, slamming closed the classroom door, which is now this ultra-secure, multiple lock-equipped heavy metal door, as the animation stays still, minus some blinking, and all we hear is the locks being done and undone a few times, when Milo then breaks the fourth wall and says, "You're welcome, animators," referencing that the job to animate this gag would put less work on them, and that's pretty great.
You're welcome, animators!
Now, aside from all this, which would make a show feel pretty complete on its own, there is a whole other sci-fi element that features some self-inserts of the creators playing these odd side characters. Dan and Swampy play the roles of Vinny Dakota and Balthazar Cavendish, respectively. They are time travelers who worked for the Bureau of Time Travel and are now at the point in time where Milo's story is taking place. While these characters get involved with other interesting organizations, they operate as these background characters who go on pistachio-related missions, as sometimes Milo, with his Murphy's Law, get in the way of things, making Cavendish think that Milo is some sort of secret agent sent to stop his pistachio shenanigans. And now all this starts pretty small, it builds up into a large section of some side story throughout the first season of the show, kind of chipping away at the slice of life thing and giving this somewhat of a side story a lot more focus. Now, Cavendish is extremely bitter and mean towards Milo for all of the reasons of Murphy's Law getting in the way, but Milo never breaks away from being nice, even offering him help when having to deal with King Pistachion. And as a fan of pistachios, all of this is just making me hungry. From there, though, he sees Milo in a positive light, while Dakota has always seen Milo to not be their enemy in all of this pistachio business. The show for sure had its own brand of wackiness going on, from Murphy's Law to time-traveling pistachio dudes, but most importantly, the show had heart to it. It feels so wholesome while still delivering on the fun and laughs. The animation compared to Phineas and Ferb definitely shows how much more comfortable the animators are at delivering these larger action set pieces when the ridiculousness of Murphy's Law come out to play, blending in 3D aspects into the 2D world in a nice stylized, non-jarring way, and allowing its bright and colorful palette to shine, making the world feel as much of a character as the characters themselves do. And I think these subtle differences in animation compared to Phineas and Ferb represent why both shows work so well and look so good with their slight distinctive differences. The writing has a big emphasis on comedy, so while the cast deliver their lines greatly, the timing, pacing, and quality of jokes truly mesh together to create some genuinely funny moments. But here's the thing. Milo Murphy's Law ended its run on May 18th, 2019 after only 2 seasons, but why is this? The show seemed to have some high ratings, a pretty fun concept to play with, and a fully put together product that I believe came together quite well, so let's dig into all these reasons why.
We'll be right back. Now, back to the show.
So, canceled wouldn't be the right word here to describe the show stopping after 2 seasons. Give me a minute, I'll get to that. But in 2019, the show was technically over. Now we can look to where it was originally broadcast, and that was Disney XD. Disney's response to try and make a more appealing sister network to the Disney Channel that would be focused more on the younger male demographic, but quickly became much more like Nickelodeon's sister network, the Nicktoons Network, as it became a graveyard for shows old and new to not garner enough of an audience for the higher-ups to greenlight more. Simply put, Disney XD quickly became a death sentence to many shows. We can spend a lot of time on why Disney XD failed, but that's not what this video is about. Another aspect was the interest in the show in general. Were enough people into what it offered? As the show would come into its 2nd season, some people found it as the show not being trusted to bring people in on its own, thanks to the inclusion of bringing in backup from Phineas and Ferb. We literally start off the season with the entire entire crew from Phineas and Ferb making cameos to draw in those who love that show. But to top that off, some characters stuck around from there and became mainstays throughout the second season. The biggest of them being Doofenshmirtz and this regular platypus. Oh, Perry the Platypus! Sorry. Again, as they continue on their previous roles from Phineas and Ferb and just get integrated into the story a bit. Major Monogram and Carl from the other series make appearances throughout the second season as well. While some saw this as a cool way to connect the shows further, there were a lot of fans who saw this as not letting Milo Murphy's Law grow on its own, at least feeling like it wasn't given the chance to. Others just tuned out with the show not being for them. At its core, the show is a simple setup as we see Milo and friends navigate their daily lives just with the twist of Murphy's Law adding in some problems. But like I mentioned, the introduction of these time travelers, their pistachio-related problems, and a somewhat progressing plot that builds throughout definitely made the show feel a bit too stuffed with ideas that don't exactly mean anything to what the core of the show is. Is it fine to explore other situations and combine them with what Milo already has going on? Sure, but the risk associated with that can push away those who are already invested and sold on the base concept, not really needing the show to toe the line of focus with this futuristic pistachio disaster setup. Was some of it fun? Did it deliver some good laughs? Yeah, I won't deny that it did, but I can see where it just became too much for what the show already was, that it feels unnecessary and in some cases, overcomplicated. Come the second season, the side plots of the time travelers feel a bit better and feeling like there is a purpose for them to belong, but then we get into all this extra alien stuff that once again feels less of this need to be there. All of it doesn't add to or take away from Milo. His character rarely gets to grow, never starting at one point and ending at another. His character and understanding of things around him have, for the most part, stayed the same as when we first met him. Some relationships with friends and even a love interest do evolve, but not to a point where you feel we've truly gotten anywhere. A lot of this is subjective to the individual viewer, so while some liked a lot of this, there were those who didn't. The same goes for the music in the show. Some love it and some compare it to Phineas and Ferb, claiming the latter to be a lot more memorable. Part of that I feel comes down to the audience size between the shows in general, as I enjoyed the music here. But as always, to each their own. Differing opinions are always okay to have. It's another case of a show not garnering a larger audience. Some of that can really be blamed on Disney XD and the accessibility to that channel mixed with the marketing behind it all, and some can be blamed on people just not becoming a fan of the show for whatever reasons they had. It was also sad to see that when the Disney Plus film Phineas and Ferb the movie Candace Against the Universe came out, there was originally going to be a cameo that featured Milo in it, including Weird Al returning to voice the character, but this would end up on the cutting room floor from the final edit. Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed what Milo Murphy's Law brought to the table. It's a charming, funny little show that has some cool connections to its predecessor, while still finding a way to be completely unique. I fully recommend giving it a shot, and there may be a good reason to go and stream it on Disney Plus, so check this out. While Dan and Swampy would go on to work on their latest show, Hamster and Gretel, they would also be given the chance to revive Phineas and Ferb, thanks to the fans' interest of rewatching the show or discovering it for the first time through Disney Plus. The ratings for Phineas and Ferb were still high. With all this work on their hands, there was still a little beacon of hope left for the fans of Milo Murphy's Law. Before it was announced that Phineas and Ferb would be coming back, Dan had mentioned that he and Swampy would love to make more Milo Murphy's Law, and that they were willing to work on more than one show at a time. With the announcement and the start of pre-production on Phineas and Ferb's revival, the time to work on 3 shows seems pretty unlikely, but still not out of the realm of possibility. For one, viewership numbers speak volumes, and according to Dan, if there seems to be a massive interest on Disney Plus from fans of Milo Murphy's Law rewatching the show or introducing it to new people, there is a chance that it could come back. It just all hinges on the viewership from Disney Plus. This reassures that the show isn't canceled, it's just not in current production. However, it could possibly stay in that state if Disney doesn't see that there is any interest for it. So who knows, maybe one day Milo, along with all of his bad luck, may just return for another handful of episodes. But would that be something you'd like to see? Would you want a season 3 of Milo Murphy's Law? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I've been Jordan Fringe. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Later.